Think you've seen all the rare pickups? After watching this video, you'll learn about some of the ultra-rare pickups, less than 1% people know about. The 1937 Hudson Terraplane pickup truck was a unique blend of a passenger car and a utility vehicle. Essentially, it was a passenger car that also had the capabilities of a truck. The chassis of the Terraplane was built really strong with thick steel frame rails and a reinforced center frame, making it sturdy enough to handle heavy loads without bending. It had really strong rear and front springs, giving it a solid feel and making it seem like it could handle way more weight than its rating suggested. The engine was a 6-cylinder with decent power, and it came with a 3-speed manual transmission. Visually, the Terraplane pickup looked like someone had chopped off the back of a sedan and stuck a simple cargo bed in its place. It had a classy exterior design with smooth curves and a fancy grille, but inside it was all about practicality with a basic bench seat, rubber floor mat, and a gear shifter on the floor. The Terraplane name was originally introduced by Hudson Motor Car Company in 1932, and they sold a decent number of commercial Terraplanes in the mid-1930s. However, the Terraplane line didn't last long, and it was discontinued after 1938. Finding a 1937 Hudson Terraplane pickup today is pretty rare since they only made a small number of them. But for collectors and fans, it's a prized possession that showcases the craftsmanship of the pre-war era. The 1957 Ford Thames Trader pickup truck was part of Ford UK's range of trucks produced between 1957 and 1965. It was the first heavy commercial vehicle designed by Ford of Britain. What made it stand out was its forward-control design, which was different from other British commercial trucks of the time. The Thames Trader came in various weight categories, ranging from 2 to 7 tons, and could be powered by either petrol or diesel engines with 4 or 6 cylinders. The lighter vehicles had wheelbases of 118 and 138 inches, while the heavier ones came with wheelbases up to 160 inches. Its interior cab design was distinctive, featuring a forward control layout that covered a wider weight range compared to Ford's previous models. The Mark II version, introduced in mid-1962, had some noticeable differences from the Mark I, such as changes in the labeling and design of the grille. The Thames Trader wasn't just popular in the UK, it was also exported to countries like South Africa, Indonesia, Spain, and Australia. After 1965, when the Thames brand was discontinued, all commercial vehicles and trucks were sold under the Ford name. The 1957 Ford Thames Trader pickup truck reflects the craftsmanship of its time and is highly sought after by collectors and enthusiasts today. The Volkswagen Type 2, also called the Transporter Combi or Microbus, hit the roads back in 1950 as Volkswagen's second car model. It was a handy forward-control light commercial vehicle that basically stemmed from Volkswagen's first-ever model, the Beetle. The Type 2 came in different body styles, including a 2-door pickup with just a regular cab and a 3-door pickup with a crew cab. One of its versions was the flatbed pickup truck, also known as the single cab. This ride was kind of a precursor to today's cargo and passenger vans, sparking competition with similar forward-control vehicles in the US during the 1960s. It really gained fame during the hippie movement of the 60s, earning cool nicknames like the microbus and hippie van. Interestingly, the very last factory churning out the T2 series of the Type 2 was in Brazil, and it closed down on December 31, 2013. The credit for the Type 2 idea goes to Ben Pon, a Dutch Volkswagen importer. He sketched the van back in April 1947, imagining it with a payload of around 690 kilograms, or 1,520 pounds, and sticking the driver right at the front. The Type 2 was engineered with a rear-engine, rear-wheel drive layout for the T1 to T3 models. The flatbed pickup truck version, or single cab, came with a wider load bed. It was a practical ride, giving you the comfort of a van along with the utility of a pickup truck. Then there was the double cab variant, also known as a Doka in German, which had an extended cab and 2 rows of seats. The Type 2 has seen 6 generations, kicking off with T1 from 1950 to 1975 and ending with T6 from 2015 to 2021. Starting with the T4 generation, it got renamed as the Transporter or Eurovan. Today, the VW Type flatbed pickup truck stands as a tribute to the creativity and skill of its time. The Cadillac Mirage is this super rare beast of a car that's basically a Cadillac Coupe de Ville that's been chopped and changed into a pickup truck. It was cooked up back in the mid-70s by a company called Traditional Coachworks in California. They basically took these luxe Cadillacs and turned them into these fancy pickups that were meant for people who wanted the swankiness of a Cadillac, but with the utility of a truck. Gene Winfield, who's a bit of a legend in the car customization world, was the brain behind this operation. The whole idea was kind of out there, right? They wanted to make a truck for people who wouldn't be caught dead in a regular El Camino, but still wanted something with a bed to haul stuff around. Plus, some of them even had this special door to stash your golf bags. Under the hood, it was no slouch either, packing a massive 8.2-liter V8 engine that pumped out 200 horsepower and a hefty 400 pound of torque. They didn't make many of these bad boys, about 204 in total. So finding one today is like stumbling upon a unicorn at a used car lot. They were only made for a couple of years, between 1975 and 1976. And because they were so rare and specialized, fixing one up today would be a bit of a nightmare due to the lack of spare parts lying around. Despite the challenge, if you're into classic cars and manage to find a Mirage in decent shape, it could be worth a pretty penny, especially because of its rarity and the cool factor of having a luxury pickup. Some of these have gone for big money at auctions, so they're definitely considered a collector's item. Tempo Matador is a cool old truck from Germany that started hitting the streets back in 1949. After World War II, Europe was pretty much in rebuild mode, and there was a big need for trucks and vans to get businesses moving again. The Tempo Matador jumped into the scene as one of the first to help out, and it had a few tricks up its sleeve. First off, it was kind of unusual because it was front-wheel drive. Most trucks and vans you see are rear-wheel drive, but the Matador was doing its own thing, which was pretty neat for its time. It started life with a small engine borrowed from the VW Beetle, which was only about 25 horsepower. Not a lot of muscle, but it was super economical to run, and because VW parts were everywhere, it was easy to keep on the road. As time went on, the folks at Tempo decided the Matador needed a bit more power, especially since they started selling it outside Germany, like in the UK. So they swapped in a beefier engine from Austin, a car company from Britain, to give it a bit more pep. The design of the Matador was all about being practical. It had the driver sitting over the engine, which is why some folks call it a cab-over-engine design, and that meant there was more room in the back for whatever you needed to haul. This thing was super versatile, too. You could find it as a pickup truck, a van, or even a little bus. They kept making the Matador into the early 60s, but eventually bigger car companies and new regulations meant the original Matador had to bow out. Even though it's not around anymore, it's got a special place in history for helping Europe get back on its feet after the war. Nowadays, if you're into old vehicles, finding a Tempo Matador is like striking gold. The 1952 Mercedes-Benz 170DA pickup truck holds a special place in Mercedes-Benz history. It was based on the 170 model, which was the first one they made after World War II. They basically used the equipment they had left from before the war to get back on their feet. The 170DA, which stood for diesel, had a decent engine for its time, a 1,767cc four-cylinder diesel that could give you 39 horsepower. It came with a 4-speed manual transmission, coil spring suspension both in the front and back, and drum brakes on all wheels. The wheelbase was about 2,845 mm. This pickup truck version looked pretty classy, painted in a two-tone brown scheme with a matching bed. People thought it was a cute little truck, especially since it had been fully restored. Inside, it was surprisingly well equipped with things like rubber floor mats, a clock, fuel and oil gauges, an ashtray, rear-view mirror, sun visors, glove boxes, a heater, and even wheel trim rings. The 170 model had a bunch of different versions running on both gasoline and diesel. It wasn't exactly cheap, so it became more of a status symbol for businessmen rather than an affordable car for everyone. The 170DA pickup truck reflected this image, showing off practicality and style that Mercedes-Benz was known for. In terms of how it performed, the 170DA was pretty efficient with fuel, especially compared to its petrol-powered counterpart, but it still gave you a good driving experience. This made it really popular, especially since diesel was easier to come by than petrol in the years right after the war. Overall, the 1952 Mercedes-Benz 170DA pickup truck is a cool reminder of how Mercedes-Benz bounced back after the war, showing off their quality and ability to adapt to tough times.